All right, good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now. It's 1:02 p.m., which means we must apologize. We are 2 minutes late on this Friday. We're actually trying to set something up for you guys right now for a little later in the stream that we think is going to be very informative and very special. So we're kind of working through that early in the stream here, but nonetheless, we wanted to kick things off on this December 12th, a Friday, which means tomorrow's Saturday, which means we have made it through an incredibly busy week, a week that started with a weather impact alert and has just remained incredibly busy when it comes to headlines, when it comes to local stories, national stories, and all of the above. There's been a lot going on. Nia Campbell, the People's producer, are you glad to have made it till Friday? Does it seem like an especially busy week to you as well?
Yes, especially busy.
Okay, we're earning that Christmas vacation that's coming up. That's right. All the time we put in now, it's going to be made up for in just a little bit, and we hope that that holds true for all of you. We hope that everyone is looking forward to a very close Christmas holiday upcoming here. But for now, You already know what it is. We have 2 hours, I guess technically 1 hour and 57 minutes of live news to get to right now. Impactful, breaking news that is making headlines today. We're going to bring all of it to your desk as soon as it comes across ours. But first, we're going to start with the press conference that actually happened just a little bit before we came on stream. From earlier this morning, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries took to the podium in Washington, D.C. For a press conference. And as we know, the Affordable Care Act subsidies continue to be at the heart of much of what is going on in Capitol Hill right now. If there is no extension to ACA tax credits by the end of December, millions of people will see their health care premiums spike, and it is very likely that millions will lose their health care coverage overall. So that deadline is looming, and elected officials on both sides are working towards a solution with that extension needed to protect so many millions of Americans' health care, or an alternative plan to protect said health care. So let's listen in on Hakeem Jeffries from earlier today, right now.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. Morning.
There are only 5 legislative days left before the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire. And we have yet to see a Republican plan to prevent tens of millions of Americans from experiencing dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. We know that premium increases, in some cases, will be $1,000 or $2,000 per month. This is going to make health care unaffordable for millions of working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans. And yet Republicans are continuing to bury their heads in the sand, completely and totally uninterested in finding common ground to make life better for the American people, in this instance by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. House Democrats remain ready, willing, and able to sit down with our Republican colleagues anytime, any place, and anywhere in order to enact a bipartisan agreement that protects the health care of tens of millions of Americans, to fix our broken health care system, and to deal with the Republican health care crisis decisively, which is crushing the American people. But Republicans continue to pursue a my way or the highway approach, which has gotten them nowhere this year, and it's consistently hurt the American people. All across the country, we are seeing Republican extremism being rejected. Most recently, in the city of Miami, a city that is more than 70% Latino, in a county, Miami-Dade, that Donald Trump just won in 2024. And a year later, a Democrat was elected as mayor of Miami for the first time in nearly 3 decades by 20 points. And yet Republicans continue to ignore the reality that is unfolding all across the country. The American people are rejecting your extremism and embracing our focus on driving down the high cost of living, dealing with the affordability crisis, which is real, it's not a hoax, and fixing our broken health care system. And at this point, all we need are 4 Republicans in the House. There are 220 of you. All we need are 4 Republicans to partner with us. Let's find a path forward, and we can extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Questions?
Mr. Leader. Good morning, thank you. Democrats obviously pushed for the extension of these subsidies during the shutdown. You had the group of Democrats in the Senate who said, give us a vote on health care, we'll reopen the government. Still no solution. Were all of those tactics worth it?
Donald Trump and Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They made the decision to shut the government down because they rather shut the government down than extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. That's not simply my perspective. That's the perspective of the American people, who consistently have held Republicans responsible correctly for the government shutdown. So that's not a question for me to answer. That's a question for Republicans
But you
to
don't
answer.
have a
Why did they
resolution.
shut the government down? We've raised the issue of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, and by the way, the overwhelming majority of the American people are with us. That's not just Democrats and independents. Overwhelmingly, that's a majority of Republicans who believe that the Affordable Care Act tax credits should be extended. 5 legislative days left before tens of millions of people experience dramatically increased health care premiums. Why have we still not seen a plan from Mike Johnson? He's been promising a health care plan for months. It's missing because their plan is to rip health care away from the American people.
Leader Jeffries.
There's talk of allowing a floor vote on this Fitzpatrick-Swazi Golden plan. Does that potentially give you guys an opening to get this done this year? Is there any hope here from that?
We're all hands on deck to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. But Mike Johnson hasn't reached out to us as Democrats to have a conversation about finding a path forward, which suggests to me that Mike Johnson is not serious about protecting the health care of the American people.
The Indiana Senate stopped President Donald Trump's redistricting push in the state. Given that development, are Democrats still full speed ahead on redistricting, or should you guys consider a more reserved approach right now?
Donald Trump launched this unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps all across the country as part of his scheme to rig the midterm elections. There were many skeptics and critics out there who argued that our efforts to take back the House was doomed because of some master plan that Donald Trump concocted that apparently as Democrats we were just supposed to unilaterally disarm, roll over and play dead, and allow Republicans to steal the midterm elections. We said from the very beginning, that ain't happening. And now it's obvious to everyone. Beginning, of course, with the dramatic actions taken initially by Texas Democrats to use every tool available to them to either block the Texas scheme to rip 5 seats away from us, or elevate the issue so that the American people know across the country what Republicans are up to. And beginning in California, we have
All right, welcome back to the Live Impact News studio. There is more to come from Hakeem Jeffries, as you could probably tell from listening into that press conference. If we have time later on in the stream, we will go back to Hakeem Jeffries' statements from Washington, D.C. this morning. But for now, we actually want to welcome a special guest on to Live Impact News. Katie Labasco joins us, a senior reporter for Tax Notes. Katie, thanks so much for taking some time to do this. It's great to have you here. I'm Connor. I know this is our first time meeting outside of email, but how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. It's been a very busy week, and a lot of it goes back to everything that's happening in Washington, D.C. So we're really happy to have you here to kind of help us clear some of this stuff up or understand better what all is happening on Capitol Hill. I guess I want to start with this, which is it feels from our vantage point like this is an especially high-strung time in Washington, D.C. There is this looming deadline. It is an issue that is going to affect constituents for every senator and every representative. And so the first thing I guess I'm wondering before we dig into any technicalities is just like, what is the tone on Capitol Hill right now? Does it feel the way that it seems to us from the outside?
Well, I think it almost always feels a little high-strung in Washington. I don't know if this week felt any more intense, but we did have 2 very big votes on healthcare yesterday in the Senate that both failed. So that was a busy day. However, we expected them to fail, which we can get into a little bit later. So there wasn't any big surprises.
And that is one of the strange things about it is as we are researching these 2 votes that are upcoming, one proposal from Republicans, one proposal from Democrats, everything that we read, even before the vote, says neither is expected to pass, which is a very strange approach to things. There's an inevitability at the end of this, and yet everyone still goes through the motions. Is there value in going through the motions?
Yes, it's extremely frustrating, especially if you're a person that might be affected by this expiring enhanced premium tax credit. I did talk to Senator Lisa Murkowski yesterday. She's a Republican from Alaska. She actually voted in favor of both plans. She wants something to happen. And she said something like, well, sometimes in the Senate, we have to show what we can't do before we can get to what we can do, which probably sounds very strange to the normal person. But sometimes you have to have these kind of failed votes to bring people to the negotiating table. At least that's what some senators are saying right now.
I'm going to start using that at work when I mess up a project. I'm going to say, look, first I have to fail at this before I can do it correctly. I'm putting that away in the back pocket.
Same here. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's dive into these two proposals then. I want to start with the Republican proposal. What is unique about the Republican proposal in the Senate that didn't pass that you think is important for people to understand?
So the Republican proposal would allow these enhanced premium tax credits for people enrolled in a ACA, an Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare exchange. They would allow them to expire. These were put in by Democrats. They were meant to be temporary. They were passed during the pandemic to help people struggling afford their health care. They're set to expire on December 31st. Now, the Republican plan here that failed yesterday, it would allow them to expire, but it would take some of those funds and expand accessibility to health savings accounts. So what it was meant to do, if you got one of these enhanced tax credits, instead you would get some federal money directly into an HSA that you have. There were restrictions on this, but it would be about $1,000 or $1,500 depending on your age. And the idea is that you could use this money to pay for your healthcare expenses. Now you can't use this to pay for your premium, what you have to pay each month to be enrolled in a healthcare plan. But Republicans say this is better because you can decide how to use the money, maybe on your copay, maybe on your new eyeglasses, however you need to use it. So it was kind of a replacement for this tax credit.
Okay, so that, you laid out kind of maybe one of the things that is beneficial about that plan, which is that you can decide how to use it. There's more versatility there, but I think based on my observation of just American life, most times that there are critical healthcare needs that goes beyond $1,500. Is that something that you have heard is a concern from people who oppose that?
Yes, critics of this plan say they are worried that people won't be able to enroll at all in health insurance because it's not helping you pay for the premium, what you have to pay to be enrolled in the first place. So that's one of the big criticisms of the idea to replace the tax credit with a federally funded health savings account. Now, Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana, he's been out there talking about this plan a lot. He was one of the senators to introduce the bill. He says, well, you can then enroll in a lower level plan, a bronze level or a catastrophic plan, and that gives you a lower premium than maybe a silver plan. And then you can use your HSA money to pay for your expenses. However, these lower level plans also come with really high deductibles. So if you have a lot of healthcare needs, a lot of healthcare costs, I saw some of these plans, the deductible is $7,000 a year. So $1,000 in your HSA may not go very far in that situation.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so that is the Republican proposal that, again, did not pass. There was a Democrat proposal that did not pass as well. What are the important points to understand about that proposal?
So it's a little more straightforward on the Democratic side. They just wanted a straight up 3-year extension of these enhanced premium tax credits. Now, why Republicans maybe could not get on board with this? There are some Republicans that want to see these tax credits extended. However, they want to see some reforms to the credit. They're worried about waste, fraud, and abuse, which there is evidence that some of that exists. They want to see maybe an income cap, so not everybody is eligible for these what were supposed to be temporary enhanced premium tax credits. Instead, the Democrats put forward a straight up extension, no changes. And so a lot of Republicans are not going to be able to support that.
Okay, so now we have a situation where there's two proposals. Neither of those proposals has been agreed to. What is the next step?
Well, we'll take the Senate first. So I talked to some senators yesterday, and they were optimistic that maybe now is the time where we can work towards a bipartisan solution. Senate Finance Committee Chair Mike Crapo, I talked to him, and he said, all along I wanted to do a bipartisan plan. But how long is that going to take? I think it's unlikely that we'll get there before Congress leaves for the holidays next Friday. So we are up against the clock here. Now, on the House side, I'll get into, we have a lot of other things going on. We do have some bipartisan proposals in the House. There's actually many of them, but there are two leading ones now, and they have Republicans and Democrats behind them. These are usually moderate members who are maybe in a vulnerable political district, and they don't want their constituents to see their premium skyrocket come January. And so there's a mix of proposals, but generally they will extend the tax credit for a year or two, also make some reforms. Now, these House members that have these plans, they are trying to force a vote. They're trying to get around leadership who has not endorsed these plans. They filed what is called a discharge petition. And if they get 218 signatures on these discharge petitions, then they can force a vote on these bills on the floor. Hopefully, next week before Friday, before they leave. As of now, neither of these petitions have enough signatures. They have enough Republicans signed on so that if all the Democrats sign on, it could move forward. But as of now, the Democrat leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, has not endorsed either of these bipartisan proposals.
Okay, Hakeem Jeffries, who we just were hearing from on Live Impact News before we began our interview. Now, when it comes to going home for the holidays, is there any world in which elected officials say, you know what, we haven't figured this out, we're not going home for the holidays, we're going to stay here until we solve this problem?
I mean, we have seen that before, but I think in this case, they've tried. Unless they're really close on something on Friday, I could see them staying a couple days. But I think that, Congress, they've had two votes. There have been attempts. They've been working on this for months. So I just don't see a real chance of them staying longer unless they're really, really close to coming to a deal.
And so if we do find ourselves in that situation where they do not get close enough to stick around and then their absence leads to no deal being struck by January 1st, is there any sort of protection that can then be enacted to make sure double-digit millions of people don't lose their health care?
I mean, I would say not all hope is lost. There's something could be done when Congress returns in January. It's a little late in the game, right? People are already enrolling in their healthcare for next year, and they have to choose a plan by December 15th, which is Monday, in order to avoid a lapse in insurance come January. But technically, open enrollment is until January 15th. There might be a lapse if you don't sign up in January, but it would start later in the year. So there is kind of another deadline there. Even if they don't do something by January 15th, I think it's possible they pass something that maybe retroactively reopens open enrollment, but we are getting into a very complicated, messy area for people who just need to decide what healthcare they're gonna be able to afford next year.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure how to frame this next question. We know that these extensions were at the center of the government shutdown, and that enough Democrats voted to pass the funding bill through without getting that extension that they held out for so long. Now that we've gotten this late in the game, and there still does not appear to be meaningful progress towards a solution, is there a sense of regret that they went over and decided to pass the spending bill through without getting this extension? Is that a fair question?
I think that's a fair question, but Democrats are certainly not expressing any regret at the moment because they can say, hey, the ball's kind of in Republicans' their court. They control the Senate, they control the House, and the presidency. So the pressure's on them is what they say on the other side. So I don't think there's regret that they ended the government shutdown. Government shutdowns no one really likes. It causes a lot of pain and uncertainty for people. And so I think, and in the end of that shutdown, enough Democrats decided enough is enough. They flipped their votes in exchange for a promised vote on the Senate floor to address the expiring tax credit. And that's what brought us to yesterday. That's how we got to this vote on a Democratic proposal.
And, you talk about the ball's in their court and how lawmakers can say, well, the ball's in their court because they didn't do this. And on both sides, they can say, oh, well, it was their fault or it was their fault. I think maybe that is at the heart of what's so frustrating for most people who are observing this situation is stop blaming each other and figure out a solution because it's everyone who's watching this that's going to suffer. So that's, and I know you're reflecting what they're saying, but is that I guess this also is not the most professional question, but is that a fair sentiment to express? And is there any sense of that on Capitol Hill that just because it's maybe not your fault does not mean that it's fair to just dismiss this issue? Is that reasonable?
I can totally understand how Americans are completely frustrated with this, especially when you have proposals in the House that appear to have support from members of both sides of the aisle that would temporarily extend the tax credits with some reforms and promises to do things later. So I would completely understand people being incredibly frustrated. But at the moment, I just don't see either side really budging. Democrats have really stuck with pushing for their 3-year straight up extension. And at this point, they're saying it's too late to do anything major. This is already happening. We have to extend it straight up, and then we can talk about changes to the healthcare system, which both sides agree. Healthcare is too expensive. There's plenty of problems and things need to be addressed, but it's too late to try to change the enhanced premium tax credit is what Democrats say.
Yeah, as someone who is a veteran of procrastination, it is quite frustrating to see that this particular issue, it has allowed to become a situation where it's too late. That's so tough to kind of sit back and try to digest. I guess on a more sort of theoretical point, is there something, what is it about healthcare that is such a sticking point and such a consistent divide between the two parties? We know there are a number of issues that separate Republicans and Democrats, but it seems like this one repeatedly seems to be a real sticking point that they just cannot find common ground on. What is it about healthcare that makes it so?
You're right. I think there's a couple of reasons. One, healthcare is incredibly complicated, right? Like there are so many different, just in the past couple of weeks, we saw, I can't even remember how many proposals put forth by members of Congress to try to fix this. And then you have the politics of it that you mentioned. The ACA, Obamacare became so politicized. Many Republicans have campaigned for years against Obamacare. Remember the whole repeal and replace campaign. And so to ask or expect Republicans to vote to extend any part of Obamacare is a really, really tough sell.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. But is there anything, do you get the sense that maybe this has crossed the line from making decisions for the best of the American people into we have to win this fight? Do you feel like it's become overly politicized to the point where that's become more of a priority than the actual healthcare coverage for millions of people?
Well, I will say that both sides do want to address the cost of healthcare. And I will point out, a lot of Republicans don't want to extend these tax credits. And I think it's important to remember there is the baseline premium tax credit that will still be in place, that it was created at the inception of Obamacare. And so anyone who earns less than 400% of the federal poverty line, which is about $128,000 for a family of four, they will still get a tax credit. It may not be as big as it was before the enhancement, but they will still get help paying for their health care. And a lot of Republicans say that was the original plan. This enhancement was for the pandemic. It was to help people struggle as we had this major economic crisis. And so it's time to let this tax credit expire.
Yeah. It's a great point, and I'm glad that you kind of provide that perspective. And thank you for continuing to humor me as I kind of at times dive into a reflection of frustrations of the American people. I do appreciate you kind of going with me down that road a couple of times.
The American people need someone to ask the tough questions.
I have very rarely have I been adequately able to fill that mantle, but I'm certainly trying my best. Now, when it comes to, we've talked a lot about senators and representatives. When it comes to the presidential administration, to President Trump and his administration, can you give us a sense of kind of their views on this fight?
Well, President Trump has not really weighed in, I would say, on this situation. He's really leaving it up to Congress to deal with this. There is a sentiment that if he did weigh in, something might happen. If he wanted to get these extended, maybe House Speaker Mike Johnson would put something on the floor. Or if he was totally against it, you would know there would be no votes on the Republican side to extend it. But at the moment, he's kind of taken a back seat to this issue.
Okay, so a back seat is certainly what it seems like. Now, beyond that, is there anything else that we need to know? Is there anything else you think is an important part of this issue that we maybe haven't touched on?
Well, I will touch on a little bit the argument that there's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse with the enhanced premium tax credit. And I will just, that's what Republicans say, that there needs to be reform so that this doesn't happen. And there is evidence that people are enrolled and don't even know they're enrolled. And so to dig in a little bit about how that works. So the tax credit is actually usually paid directly to the insurance company that then reduces the premium for the taxpayer. And so what that does is create a situation where the insurance company or a shady broker has the incentive to keep people enrolled without them even knowing. And there are some people that have $0 premiums. So it's possible that they may not even know that they're enrolled. And I think a lot of people could agree there's a problem with that. And so that's why a lot of the Republican plans want to address that and not have money go directly to the insurance company. Or in the case of one of the bipartisan proposals in the House, it would create a minimum, I believe it's just a $5 minimum premium. So people knew that they were enrolled, and it would kind of do away with that incentive for maybe a shady broker to keep enrolling people without their knowledge.
And that in particular sticking point, do you think that is something that Democrats would be able to compromise on?
I can't say I've talked to any Democrats about that specifically, but there was an income limit in that bipartisan proposal. It was, if you made under, I think, 150% of the federal poverty line, you wouldn't be subject to this $5 minimum. But on the other hand, healthcare is complicated, and some lawmakers don't want to create any more barriers to enrollment. You already have to there's people who don't have time to do all the research and decide what insurance coverage plan they have. And so if you add another barrier or another verification process, Democrats may say that's too hard, or making it too hard for people to enroll.
And just laying out those two answers back to back, really a good summary of how complicated this is and how much there is, we could make this work, but then that would create this problem. And then there's the unintended consequence of this, and is just a really good showcase of how complex this is and maybe why we're in this situation. Well, Katie, we cannot thank you enough for joining us today. That was, I mean, this is great. We really appreciate you coming on and being able to lend that perspective. And is there anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I think we covered it all. It's a complicated situation, and I'm not optimistic something will be resolved by Friday before the holidays, but there is the chance something could happen in January.
Okay, and we talk about how much, the representatives and senators are having to work through this. We know you're working very tirelessly as well, so I hope that you kind of get to that Christmas vacation soon and you get to take a little bit of time off as well, and hopefully we get this solution figured out. And, when we do get this figured out, hopefully we would love to have you back on our platform to talk a little bit more about a hopeful resolution that's to come.
Of course, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that was Katie Labasco again joining us to talk about these Affordable Care Act tax credits that have been at the center of so much debate and so much division in Washington. And as you heard, not optimistic that something gets done by the holidays, but that does not mean that something can't get done in January. So we'll be keeping a sharp eye on that story as always. And we really can't thank Katie enough for coming on and spending a little bit of time with us here as she is plugged in up in Capitol Hill to this issue, as you can tell. Now, speaking of Washington, D.C., the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, is at the podium right now as we speak. So I say maybe we go live out to that particular press conference. Before we go live out there, a little bit more information on what's being discussed. It's the HSDF Border Security Symposium in Washington, D.C., and that would be the Homeland Security Defense Forum, as you can see on the tapestry behind Secretary Noem. So let's go live out to D.C. now.
And may God bless you for partnering with us in new ways each and every day. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to visit with all of you. And with that, I will yield back, but does anybody have any questions? I'll take a couple questions before I leave if you've got some. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
We have a contract on your desk right now to review the
We're going to negotiate a contract right here today. I love it.
I want to know what we're going to do to improve and quickly put in place AI-enabled surveillance on our borders to improve the false alarm rate, which is very, very high right now and causing a lot of pain to the folks in the field who need this.
Yeah, as you know, we had a plan under Trump 45 to build the wall, and the wall is not just an infrastructure of a primary wall. There's a secondary wall and the technology and surveillance equipment that actually goes with it as well. And as we do that, and this is the largest project that's ever been undertaken, I believe, in the world, to build an infrastructure project of this magnitude. And having the right technology to tell us when there is a threat at that border is important, but also we need to know when it's not a threat and it's something else. So your contract, I don't know the specific one, but I will go look at it. It's not on my desk yet because I just cleared my desk this afternoon. But I will. But that is one thing that we need, is not just technology, but technology that's reliable, that gives us the correct information we need to keep people safe. So we have already done the many contracts to deploy and building of the border, but we are going to continue to allocate those. I think we have put those out faster from the OB3 funding than ever done before as far as the contracting process has gone, but we'll continue to ensure that those systems get installed and online as soon as possible. What else? She shut it down, didn't she? With the yes, sir. Last one, and then I better let you get back to business.
Ma'am, not a question, but I'm not going to speak for everybody here, but for me, just want to say keep it up.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, God bless you. You have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we got there just for the tail end of Secretary Noem's press conference. We apologize that we weren't able to air more of that. We tried to get there in time. We just missed it. That is a part of Live Impact News. Now, we were listening in on Hakeem Jeffries just before we did our interview with Katie Labasco. Because she spoke so much about the ACA issue, about representatives, she specifically mentioned Hakeem Jeffries in her interview and about how he hadn't approved certain proposals. Why don't we go back out to Hakeem Jeffries? Let's listen in a little bit more since it's so topical, and then we'll continue to explore what else we have today. We've also got a forecast coming up in not too long. So let's go back out to Minority Leader Jeffries.
Unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps all across the country as part of his scheme to rig the midterm elections. There were many skeptics and critics out there who argued that our efforts to take back the House was doomed because of some master plan that Donald Trump concocted that apparently as Democrats, we were just supposed to unilaterally disarm, roll over and play dead, and allow Republicans to steal the midterm elections. We said from the very beginning, that ain't happening. And now it's obvious to everyone. Beginning, of course, with the dramatic actions taken initially by Texas Democrats to use every tool available to them to either block the Texas scheme to rip 5 seats away from us or elevate the issue so that the American people know across the country what Republicans are up to. And beginning in California, we have responded decisively. And the reality of the situation is that Republicans may have started this redistricting battle. We, as Democrats, plan to finish it.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. The Trump administration earlier this week announced the settlement with some Republican-controlled states to effectively end the SAFE program, the repayment program that President Biden created during his administration. It will affect up to 7 million borrowers. You've been very critical of Republicans, saying that they're exacerbating the affordability crisis as you see it. Do you see the end of this program and what the Education Department is doing by announcing this proposed settlement as potentially hurting even more Americans who could be forced into less generous, programs, have more trouble paying their student loans back? How do you see student loan debt within the context of the affordability crisis?
Well, the Trump administration has launched an all-out assault on public education in America. They have destroyed the Department of Education in real time. And they're going after hardworking American students, including college students, who are just simply trying to experience the American dream. An American dream that is increasingly out of reach for far too many hardworking American taxpayers. And the American people know it. And the American people also know that Donald Trump's administration and Republican policies have been a complete and total disaster. That's why this guy is at like 36% in approval. They're losing elections all across the country, literally in deep red parts of the country, including most recently in Miami and in Georgia, where the Republicans lost a special election for a state house seat that Donald Trump had just won by more than 12 points. And so, from our vantage point, listen, we want to work with anyone to find the common ground to actually solve the problems that the American people want us to solve. And that's lowering the high cost of living and fixing our broken health care system while cleaning up corruption at the same period of time. And the assault on all of the things that have been done, including trying to ease the debt burden that students across this country have confronted, is irresponsible. And is further evidence of the fact that Republicans never intended to keep their promise to lower costs on day one, because they haven't done a damn thing to make that happen.
Leader Jeffries.
Hold on.
Mr. Leader.
Who's speaking?
Mr. Leader, can I just ask, yesterday you voted present on this effort on the motion to table the impeachment resolution against President Trump. A number of your Democratic colleagues did as well. Do you think that the president has committed impeachable offenses?
We issued a statement on that motion to table, and that statement speaks for itself. Thanks.
Leader Jeffries, thank you very much. Eric Gerstein with The Independent. Just now, the Oversight Committee released more photos and more documents from the Epstein files. We have 7 legislative days until the Department of Justice. Why was it important to release those documents and those photos? And what else should happen if the Trump administration doesn't comply? What can Congress do if Congress doesn't comply with this? Or the DOJ doesn't comply with this?
Well, the so-called Department of Justice under the Trump administration needs to comply with the law. And we as Democrats, led by Robert Garcia, the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, are going to continue to make sure that we're holding this administration accountable. These people who are part of the Trump administration, including Donald Trump and J.D. Vance himself, all said for years that they wanted to release the Epstein files. Then they come into office and do the exact opposite. Obstruct and obfuscate, hide stuff from the American people. All we want is full transparency, so that the American people can get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what the Epstein survivors deserve and have demanded. And we're going to make sure that the Department of Justice complies.
Thanks, Leader Jeffries. You say that at least 4 Republicans are needed to cross the aisle to get health care done. Well, there are nearly a dozen Republicans who have signed on to the discharge petition for both the Fitzpatrick bill and for the Gottheimer bill. Why not endorse one of them or both of them and encourage your members to sign on as well to get the ball rolling in that respect?
We're actively reviewing those 2 discharge petitions, and we'll have more to say about it early next week. But what is clear, time is running out. Where were these Republican ideas over the last several months? You know what? They were so busy shutting the government down. Donald Trump's busy playing golf. They could find $40 billion to bail out their right-wing dictator friend in Argentina. They're pardoning people like George Santos and Rudolph Giuliani. And they're running around trying to promote their one big ugly bill, which enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. That's what got the ball rolling on the Republican health care crisis. And as a result, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across the country, including in rural America. They ripped food assistance out of the mouths of hungry children, veterans, and seniors, and they did all of that with great urgency so they could reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. And they made those tax breaks permanent. And now at the 11th hour, they're scrambling. It still remains the case that the most direct path forward is a straightforward extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And there's one discharge petition that does that. And it has 214 signatures. And all we need are 4 Republicans to join us.
Just to follow up on that, though, I understand that your ideal path is a clean extension, but Republicans have made clear that they will not go for a clean extension. So would you be willing to settle for something that's not a clean extension in the name of saving these subsidies?
We're going to evaluate every single good faith proposal, but it has to meaningfully provide certainty to the American people who are at risk of having their health care ripped away from them. These Republicans made those massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors permanent. And we've said from the very beginning, we just want to make sure that everyday Americans, middle-class Americans, working-class Americans, have a similar level of certainty. That's not too much to ask for in the wealthiest country in the history of the world.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Yesterday, President Trump signed the executive order on artificial intelligence seeking to block the states from regulating the AI. Specifically, and I want to ask you about specifics in this EO, it directs DOJ to create a litigation task force and challenge any state that they view doesn't comply with whatever the national standard is. It also gives powers to Secretary of Commerce to impose restrictions on state funding and also aims to regulate truthful output. So my questions to you, I have several. First, what is your position on the EO? Should Americans be concerned that the AI policy is being set through executive order instead and litigation instead of open debate in the Congress? If this approach becomes a standard, What is going to stop any future president from using DOJ to go against and challenge any state law they want? And finally, is this EO about innovation, or is it about expanding presidential powers?
Well, Donald Trump has tried to conduct himself like a wannabe king from the very beginning. The American people are clearly rejecting that approach. And on artificial intelligence, this is a complicated thing, a transformative innovation that has the possibility of bringing great societal benefits, particularly in the areas of medicine and education, as it relates to reaching young people who live in historically under-resourced parts of the country. But at the same period of time, it's our view that this transformative technology in the hands of bad actors presents risks of creating societal harm. And this is why a thoughtful approach is needed. Not a my way or the highway executive order. In our view, related to Donald Trump's most recent action connected to artificial intelligence, is that he doesn't have the authority to do it. And ultimately, it's going to get struck down in court.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Some members of your party are calling for the abolition of ICE following the administration's very aggressive crackdown on illegal immigration. Is that a viewpoint that you believe has a place in your party right now as Democrats strive to take back power after the midterms?
Who exactly has made that?
Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez has, Congresswoman Delia Ramirez has, also Patty Garcia, who is running to replace Chuy Garcia, Graham Plattner as well. They have said that this should not exist and it should cease.
Yeah, I haven't had a conversation with any of those individuals about their perspective. What we do know is that the American people believe that Donald Trump's deportation efforts have been completely and totally out of control, unacceptable, and un-American. That's the reality of what Donald Trump has unleashed on law-abiding immigrant communities all across America. And the American people are rejecting it, which is why Donald Trump is also underwater in terms of public approval on immigration. Now, we believe, as Democrats broadly, that we need a strong and a secure border consistent with our history and experience as a nation anchored in the rule of law. Donald Trump doesn't believe in the rule of law, and neither do his sycophants who serve in Congress, who fail to understand that we're a separate and co-equal branch of government, not a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump cartel, because that's how they behave. So we believe in the rule of law, and part of that is a strong border. But at the same period of time, we're a nation of immigrants. And so we're going to continue to defend dreamers, defend farm workers, defend farm country, defend law-abiding immigrant families and communities across the country who are part of the ingredient of American exceptionalism. That's our position. And we do have a broken immigration system. Everybody thoughtful who's taken a look at it understands that. But the way to solve it is not a my way or the highway approach, and it certainly is not the Trump deportation machine. He promised that he was going to target violent felons. No one would have any issues with that. He's not deporting violent felons. He's deporting law-abiding immigrants, veterans who served this country, children who are actually American citizens, grandmothers and grandfathers, gardeners, and communities across the country are rejecting it.
Mr. Leader, as sort of a follow-up to that question, today Congressman Abe Hamadeh is inviting families who've had family members killed by undocumented immigrants to the Capitol.
Who is that?
Abe Hamadeh of Arizona.
Okay.
And I want to ask about 2026 and how you're encouraging border state Democrats to respond to messaging such as this, because it was a big issue in 2024, and it appears that some Republicans are ready to message on it in 26.
We'll let border state Democrats speak for themselves.
As a party leader, as a leader.
I've got great confidence in them. I think I just articulated our view on immigration generally, and that, I believe, is a position that's broadly held by Democrats all across the country. Listen, Republicans are desperate to try to find a path out of the electoral disaster that they're experiencing right now. This year has been a complete and total failure for the American people. And Republicans are on the run. The reason why this whole gerrymandering scheme was launched is because Republicans know that if a free and fair election were held, they're done in the House of Representatives. It was always a myth and a fantasy that some big mandate was attached to what happened in November of 2024 that we never bought into. Why? Because we were only 3 seats short. This is the closest majority that any party has had since the Great Depression, and it's all now falling apart. And everybody sees it. And they can't project this fake strength to the American people anymore because they failed the American people on the economy, on health care, and the extremism that has been unleashed on the American people is completely and totally unacceptable. So our view generally, as Democrats, we're going to solve problems for everyday Americans because we believe in this great country of ours. You work hard, you play by the rules, you should be able to live the good life. An affordable life, a comfortable life. Good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement. Which means to my Republican colleagues, keep your extreme hands off of Social Security and Medicare at all times. And far too many people in this country, wealthiest country in the history of the world, are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck because there is an affordability crisis. It's not a scam, it's not a hoax, it's a crisis. And Democrats are committed to doing something about it. Republicans continue to bury their heads in the sand. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to ask him about,
All right, back in here for live Impact News. We wanted to run the entirety of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' press conference because in the interview we just did with Katie Labasco, she mentioned Hakeem Jeffries. She talked about a number of different senators and representatives, including Representative Jeffries, as both sides, Democrats and Republicans in Washington, continue to try to work through this health care situation and the extension of ACA tax credits. We know we've talked about it a lot already on this show, already this week, but it is a critical issue, and the deadline is fast approaching. So we will continue to talk about it, and we'll try to continue to bring you fresh news regarding that situation. Now, I want to mention something quickly before we shift gears, because we are going to shift gears. But there are now 2 people in the studio with me here, not just the People's producer, Nia Campbell, but also meteorologist extraordinaire Hunter Forst, and they just exchanged a look, and there was a giggle from both of them. What's going on over there, guys?
Nia just looked at me and then started laughing, and then I started laughing.
Because Hunter is always just laughing and smiling at me randomly.
He's excited to be here. He's excited to see you. He loves being a part of Live Impact News.
I do.
And yeah, I know you especially love when I go on overlong monologues while you're sitting waiting to forecast.
That is my second favorite part.
What's your favorite part?
My favorite part, to be continued.
Okay. Okay.
So
We'll
that's why
update you on his
thought-
favorite part later on.
You thought we laughed because you were taking too long to get to him?
I thought it was possible.
Oh, no.
That wasn't it.
You're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks, Nia. You got... okay. I don't know if I entirely believe you. This is also a situation where what I'm getting from this is, that's not all about you, Connor. Okay? You know, we're not always... Sometimes we're just laughing because we're having a friendship moment.
We forgot you were here for a minute.
I didn't say all that.
Pew, pew, pew.
Kidding.
We're starting hot with our forecast, and that is just how we like it because it's cold outside, so something's got to be hot around here.
Yeah.
Hunter, talk to us. There's got to be a warm-up coming. Saturday looks okay.
Saturday, not bad.
Okay.
Mid-50s.
I like it.
We'll take it.
Yep.
But today, another day below average, upper 30s to low 40s, partly cloudy skies. Seen a few blue shots of blue.
Oh, yeah, take a look. We're taking a look behind
That's
Hunter at the
oceanfront.
Virginia Beach oceanfront.
It makes it kind of want to jump in.
And are those seagulls floating around on the ocean there?
Where?
Oh, I thought I saw some white spots up kind of in the middle area.
There could be a few.
I think we got a little bit of wildlife hanging out there.
Seagulls are big into polar plunge.
Oh, they love taking a dip when it's cold out.
Yeah.
Now the thing with
I
Hunter
just made
Forst
that
is
up.
okay. Sometimes he's revealing like true nuggets of awesome information, and then sometimes He's sarcastic, especially when we're talking about seagulls.
Right.
And I know that the hottest segment in Hampton Roads, Wave Check with Naya, it is coming up. Naya, do you want to just knock that out now while Hunter's here? Hunter, this is a new segment we've been doing.
Okay.
Naya gives us a little wave check at the Virginia Beach oceanfront. Naya, what do you got for us?
I don't know. The waves are looking very minimal today. We have like 2 waves right now.
Yeah, so
What
minimal.
was the word Taylor used yesterday? She used a very good word, choppy. They don't look, the waves don't look choppy today.
Right. It looks pretty
calm.
smooth. Yeah, pretty calm.
Calm seas out there. It looks kind of nice, actually. It looks like
nice.
sort of a peaceful day out at the oceanfront.
It does.
Okay, that was Wave Check with Naya Campbell. Still waiting on a sponsor. Okay, back to Hunter Force for a little bit more on your forecast. Hunter, what do you got?
So, Saturday, mid-50s, a good amount of sunshine, great day. Saturday, cold, very cold. Some of the coldest air of the season pushing into the region. It's going to be the warmest part of the day in the morning, upper 30s to low 40s.
Okay.
Maybe a few snow flurries.
And this is Saturday?
This is Sunday.
This is Sunday. Okay, got it. Sunday.
And then through the afternoon and into the evening, temperatures just tumble like they are in a tumbler.
Yeah, that's a tremendous reference. Very strong comparison from Hunter Force. And that, okay, so Saturday, relatively nice.
Yeah.
Okay, low to mid 50s even.
Yep.
And then on Sunday, it starts out at its nicest point and it goes downhill.
Yeah, just.
And I think we know why, because it is leading into a frigid Monday situation.
A frigid Monday. Even Sunday night, it's going to be frigid.
Okay.
Coldest air of the season. That's why we have a weather impact alert, because it could be, dangerous for a few people, especially since it's the coldest air of the season. We're not really used to this yet, even though it has been pretty chilly. So, of course, bundling up from head to toe. I was telling Ashley today in the noon, when you go and get a hot dog and sometimes people ask for the works, so you get everything.
Yep, a little bit of relish, ketchup, mustard,
Exactly.
the onions, the whole deal.
Now it's like when you go into your closet Sunday night into Monday, you got to get the works.
Okay,
You
we
gotta
just
get it
had a successful hot dog closet comparison from Hunter Force. You don't get many of those.
You don't.
Very strong. Okay, so you need it all. You need gloves. You need jackets. You need thermal layers, hats, hand warmers, the works.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, let's take a look at the Futurecast wind chills. This is Sunday, 7 o'clock in the evening. I mean, if it's me, I'm hanging out at home.
Yep.
I'm not even stepping foot outdoors. 9 degrees in Norfolk, 9 in Chesapeake, 10 in Suffolk, 7 in Gloucester, and it stays like that through Sunday night, single digits everywhere by 10 o'clock. And then you're heading off to work Monday morning. I mean, if it was, a Wednesday or Thursday, fine, because you're in the grind of working, but you're just starting a new week and now you got to start it and it's feeling like 13. It's just not what you want,
You want to ease into your
You want
Monday.
to ease into it.
Okay,
But
this is what it's going to feel like.
This is what it's going to feel like.
Sunday night,
Into
12
Monday morning.
degrees, and no, this is Monday morning.
Monday morning.
8 degrees Sunday night in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Temperature,
And you're
wind
going
chill
to
combo.
Williamsburg, right?
That's late. Hold on now. That's
So-
late Sunday night.
That's when the
Okay, but even
festivities
around
are.
7, it'll be like
Oh
10.
boy. When are you going to Williamsburg?
It's evening time.
Bundle up.
The works.
The works.
The works.
8 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it. You
Think
love
of
the
it
cold.
Right. Think of it as a unique, fun challenge.
Yeah.
I love the cold, not bitter cold.
And you know what?
All of a sudden, Naya wishes
all
it
of
was
a sudden,
warm out.
she
Here
hates
we
the
go. After months of,
I
of
never said
looking for
freezing
cold.
cold.
This is fair.
Like
this
where
is
your
very
bones
fair.
feel like they're chattering.
This is another level. And Hunter and I can relate because Hunter and I love it when it's 70 or 80 degrees outside.
Right.
But once it gets to like 97, 98, we're kind of having one of these same crises.
Right.
No, Hunter, hold on. Hunter will take as high as the temperature can go over there.
I'll take 110 over 10.
That I actually do
110?
agree with. Over 10. Over 10.
But you can't like take your skin off. You just got to sit there and deal with the heat.
A bizarre way to frame that, but very true.
Because when it's
I get
cold,
what you're
you
saying.
can bundle up.
Right.
Layers, layers, layers.
Right.
When it's super scorching hot, there's not.
You're
much
saying you
to
can
do.
always add more layers.
Get a fan.
But you can always get a fan and just do one of these.
At certain
Jump in the
temperatures,
water.
the fan isn't doing anything but circulating hot air.
That's a good point.
But those hand fans, they just find a way to get the
The
cold air
fan
out.
that has the
or a
little
small fan with
mist.
the mist.
Hot water and hot air circulating.
Yum.
Okay. Now, can I draw attention to the fact that it is December 12th? Monday is going to be one of the coldest days of the year, and the three of us are in here talking about how to stay cool in the heat. Let's get back to our winter forecast, Hunter.
Yeah, that was a tangent.
No, I
right?
love our tangents. I
But
love
here's
our
the
tangents.
thing.
Yeah.
We are going to have a warm-up on the way.
There we go.
This isn't
Perfect
going to
segue.
stick around forever. You know how it's been a cold start to December? One of the coldest. We've been, 8 degrees below average through the month so far. Look at that. You see that? 60 on Thursday?
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, that's beach weather at this point. So we slowly warm up Tuesday into Wednesday. And not only do we stay at 60 on Thursday, but I mean, even Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're staying in the mid to upper 50s. So it's not like one of these random days where we warm up and then we see another, shot of cold air. We're going to see an actual pattern change in the forecast. I'll show you guys what the jet stream is going to be looking like over the next couple of days, and this will give you an idea of why we're going to be seeing that. So you see this trough pushing into the region Saturday into Sunday. So here we are Monday morning, that big old trough. So that helps to bring in some much colder air. That's why we're going to be freezing. A ridge in the west, and it's been like this pretty much all December. It's been very warm in the west, very cold in the east because the jet stream has been in this type of pattern. But we're going to see a ridge forming over the area Wednesday into Thursday. That's going to bring up some much warmer air. And then we kind of get into more of a zonal flow through, next week into next weekend. The jet stream's a little bit off to the north. So in the zonal flow, you get temperatures that are, kind of around average, even could be above average. So that's why we kind of, start to see our temperatures getting back to where they should be for this time of year or even warmer. So if we look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, this is from the Climate Prediction Center saying, we'll see temperatures either at or above normal through the week of Christmas.
A stunning turnaround.
A stunning turn of events.
Unbelievable. We were just talking about bitter cold.
Yeah.
And just like that, that's Hampton Roads for you, really.
It is.
Okay, so we're going to have above average, above normal temperatures once we get through this cold spell.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic.
So something to look forward to.
And did you call that a zonal what? A zonal flow? Zonal flow, I believe, is what I used to call it when I would make more than 2 layups in a row while shooting around in my backyard, playing a little basketball.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in a zonal flow right now.
You're in a zonal flow.
Little did I know I was using meteorology terms.
You were. So,
Now, Naya, if you're in a zonal flow, what are we talking here? What's a Naya zonal flow?
I don't know. Let me think on that.
Maybe a little bit, what were we talking about earlier this week? Hitting those graphics, making graphics for the show. Everything's working in terms of the layout and the font and the imagery. It's fitting perfect on our M wall.
Yeah.
That's Naya Campbell in the zonal flow.
That's true. And when I'm in a flow at work, that's a good example.
Exactly. All right, Hunter Force. What does a Hunter Force zonal flow looks like? You're in one right now.
No.
Anytime you
I'm
come on
just
Live
kidding.
Impact News.
Every time I come in Live Impact News, I feel like I'm in a zonal flow.
Okay, fantastic. And that zonal flow is going to bring us some warm temperatures later into December. Raise the roof.
Raise the roof.
Very good. All right, what else should we look out for? In terms of precipitation, what are we looking at? Anything today?
We saw a few flurries earlier.
Okay.
We can look at the radar out there right now, and it's not looking, too bad. We're seeing some flurries down to the south, maybe even a few sprinkles as well, but a lot of that not really reaching the ground. But overall, it's just going to be a cloudier, cool day. Not a whole lot going on. Temperatures dropping into the mid to upper 30s this evening, low 30s by about 9, 10 o'clock tonight. So it'll be a cold Friday night. You're going to want to bundle up, but this won't come close to what we will experience Sunday night into Monday. But again, here's a look at the day tomorrow. 54 degrees, partly cloudy, warmer on Saturday, mid 50s. And then on Sunday, we start off in the low 40s, dropping throughout the day. Could maybe see a couple snowflakes Sunday morning into the early afternoon, maybe an isolated shower or two, but not looking like anything significant. But that's the system that's going to be pulling in some of that cold air. So that's part of the reason why we'll be seeing that. But, waking up tomorrow, mid to upper 30s by the afternoon, even upper 50s down in eastern North Carolina, a little bit cooler around Gloucester and Williamsburg. And then by Saturday night, dropping back into the lower 40s. Here's a look at Sunday morning. We're in the upper 30s to low 40s. Already freezing starting off in Tappahannock, but warmer
it's like
down
a
south.
15, 16 degree drop from Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it is plummeting.
So here we go. And then you see a few snowflakes up to the north.
Okay.
And then maybe a few, snowflakes popping into the south side. But we continue to drop. And then by the time we get into Sunday evening, we're in the low 20s.
And that's you're not factoring in the wind chill.
And that's
there.
not the wind
That's
chill.
just the temperature
Yeah.
outside.
So we will be feeling like, 10 to 15 degrees.
Which 8:15 is right when Sunday night football kicks off. We're going to get warm. We're going to get cozy. We're going to huddle up with some hot cocoa right around some football, unless you have big outdoor plans in Williamsburg.
Right, like Naya.
Otherwise, other than that, we're going to be just fine. Okay, good to know.
Maybe some hot queso, chips and dip.
Hunter, preach.
Or
Or
some chili.
Yes.
Dipping your chip in queso and in your chili.
No.
Yeah. What? Naya, that's a perfect combo.
No.
A little bit of chili, a little bit of queso, a perfect chip.
She doesn't trust a chef like me.
Oh, is it because? Okay.
I don't think you want to go there.
Right? I was gonna say, how deeply do we want to dive into Hunter's chef
Right.
skills? We'll save that. We'll save that for another
pretty-
episode. Now, you have no point of reference there.
Right. That looks like a low bar to me.
All right. Okay. Now, it's a weather impact alert, which means people need to be alert. It's in the title for certain safety precautions. What is the main thing people need to look out for to ensure that they are safe on an extreme weather day like this, where it's just really that extreme cold?
It's one of those evenings and mornings where even if you overdress or you just put on way too much, that's fine. Because like Naya was saying before, you could just take off layers if you're too hot. You're going inside, you could take off your coat, your jacket,
your
cardigan,
long sleeve tee,
your long sleeve tee,
sweater,
turtleneck.
Okay.
You can take all that off. But you want to be, it's better safe than sorry. If you're going for a walk, you have to be outdoors for an extended period of time. Rather want to overdress for that type of weather because you could, tie something around your waist while you're walking around if you get a little bit too hot. But certainly want to be covering your ears, your head. You lose a lot of heat out of your head. You lose a lot of heat out of your feet. So a nice thick hat, nice thick socks.
Gloves. Yes. Okay.
Keep your heart warm.
Keep your heart warm. Freezing temps, cold wind chills. Everyone be careful up there Sunday night into Monday morning. But enjoy Saturday because it is going to be a beautiful Saturday here in Hampton Roads. Okay. Now, is there anything else we need to know before we let you go, Hunter? This should be interesting. Anytime you get one of those, Hunter's cooking up something that is not weather-related whatsoever. He's either going to start singing or something.
No, there's nothing, I don't think.
Okay. That was perfect. That was a very thorough forecast. We appreciate you taking some time to hang with us today. And we are all going to make it through to those warm, late December temperatures. Most of us will do it by hunkering down here and getting through this weekend. Maybe there are people in our area who are going to travel down to Florida to try to seek out some warmth, but most of us will stay here and we will make it work right here in Hampton Roads. Okay, Hunter, you're the best. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
And you can see Hunter at 4 p.m. on 13 News Now today. I'll be there as well as Madison Schlegel. Please join us on 13 News Now for more on your forecast and other daily headlines.
What a team.
Now, one team, 4 p.m. Let's take a reset here. Where are we at? What are we doing? It's 2:12 p.m. It remains Friday, early December. As we promised, we've already had a busy stream so far. Now, we've got a little bit of time to maneuver here. We have no live events that are pressing at this very moment. based on sources that we're looking at here. So what we can do is we can listen in on our District 2 Congresswoman from right here in Hampton Roads, who did an interview with 13 News Now earlier today. Jen Kiggins, Congresswoman again, District 2, and our own Jernara, doing an interview today. Let's go ahead and listen in on what the Congresswoman had to say. She, of course, was part of a bipartisan health care proposal, one of those proposals that Katie Labasco was talking about during her time with us here on Live Impact this morning. So let's listen in to the Congresswoman.
Happy Friday.
Thank you.
All right. Congresswoman Kiggins, thank you for joining us today to talk about the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. So let's start with talking about some of the big wins for our military community here at Hampton Roads, like the quality of life improvements. What will sailors and the military in general notice in the next year or two?
Yeah, so this year's NDAA, which passed out of the House of Representatives this week on a very bipartisan vote, had a lot of wins for our military overall, and especially for the military families and uniformed people in our district. First of all, there's a 3.8% pay raise. That's something that I wish it was more. We always wish it was more. We can never thank and pay them enough for the work that they do. But that's an important pay raise. We also had funding, $1.5 billion for housing improvements. This has been a passion project of mine, just securing better housing. We know that we can do better for especially on the unaccompanied side, people who are living on base, and in military family housing. So we actually dedicated a significant portion. The Secretary of War has a housing task force. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of that to make sure that we're directing those funds properly. There was funding for child development centers. We know that we need more child care on the active duty side on base, so there's funding for that. There's also some provisions for DoD schools. We're looking at no cell phone policies in DoD schools and making sure that we have adequate infrastructure there. And then on the healthcare side, we changed some of the licensure requirements to make it quicker for healthcare providers to actually serve our military families. We also put in provisions for people who had pediatric illnesses but maybe want to join our military. We made sure that there's uniform accession standards so that they're not struggling with out-of-date diagnoses that might prohibit them from serving. Also made sure that they know of other options and ways they can serve the country. Things like skilled trades. We certainly need, as many people as we can get to recruit and retain the best and brightest. So some really good quality of life wins in there. We also looked at quality of life for our military Sea Lift Command. We do a lot of talking about their role in complementing our military and filling gaps right now on the civilian mariner side. And so we removed a pay cap requirement for our MSC folks, and then we also made sure that they had the privilege of shopping at the commissaries and exchanges. So that was a nice thing that we could give them as well to thank them. So a lot of great wins for our district. There's a home porting change requirement, so we increased from 12 to 18 months. If there's a work that needs to be done for ship repair, it has to be greater than 18 months to be able to be considered for other parts of the East Coast. Right now, that requirement is 12 months. So we're seeing a lot. We lose work to other parts of the East Coast because it's a 12-month requirement. So extending it to 18 months requires the Navy to do more work here in Hampton Roads.
All very important things for our service members day to day. Also in the NDAA is a plan to clean up PFAS at military sites. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's something we've seen in Hampton Roads.
Yeah, so I've introduced just freestanding legislation to address this issue of PFAS in our water supply. We know that it's unfortunately there. We are working to clean that. So putting funding towards that. We also had funding that's dedicated towards the NASA wallops. This is an issue as well, but making sure clean water, that the PFAS issue needs to be dealt with. So the fact that Congress is prioritizing that and providing that funding to get that out of our drinking water and make sure our military families are safe was important.
Let's see. Very much so. I know we've had the issues at Fentress, and like you mentioned, NASA wallops and getting that more cleaned up. Going back to the topic of healthcare, we obviously stood up a new clinic in Hampton Roads in Chesapeake earlier this year. So in the NDAA, what aspects of it really help support staffing clinics like that and even bringing more clinics or facilities to the region in the future?
Yeah, that licensure piece to make sure that we are tweaking some of the licensure requirements to making it a much quicker process to get new healthcare providers into our military system has been important. We're always looking at TRICARE, ways that we can improve that for our military families, making sure we're compensating also our physicians who are caring for military families is an important piece. As a nurse practitioner, I certainly prioritize ways we can improve healthcare for the military, and that's something we work on every day.
Definitely. Were there any provisions that you would have wanted to see in this bill or that you want to, maybe bring up in the future to further support our military?
Yeah, we push for changes with military children right now. Civilian insurance allows our military children to stay on plans up to age 26, but we don't have that same provisions. They can stay on TRICARE as long as they're in college full time, but then military families are having to pay for children between the ages of when they graduate from college and 26. So it's not the same coverage that our civilian partners provide. And so we've tried for many years, we'll continue to push to try to have our military young adults, covered for that gap period. That's something we push for. There's funding. We just introduced a bill yesterday, freestanding for silver sneakers for our older adults to be covered at some of our parks and rec centers. That's something that we've pushed for in the past. But for me, it's the quality of life piece is not just as much of a pay raise as we can give them, but the housing piece, the healthcare, the childcare, and the spouse employment. How are we supporting our spouses also? Those will continue to be priorities of mine going forward.
Definitely. And one question about something that's causing a little bit of a controversy in the NDAA, which is not necessarily related to Hampton Roads, but the airspace issue at Reagan International, that there was more access given to the military in that airspace near that airport. And obviously, at the beginning of the year, there was that very tragic crash between a commercial plane and a military helicopter. Do you feel like there needs to be more work or more conversation on that issue to ensure that both civilians and military are as safe as they can be at Reagan?
Yes. As a former Navy helicopter pilot, I certainly understand the importance of flight rules and regulations. And there are other vehicles that we can accomplish these same and address these aviation safety issues. The squadron, for example, can make their flight rules so that they are either restrictive at times of day or around certain civilian airports, as we see here in Washington. But the fact that one provision is absent, not ideal, but there are other vehicles that exist that we can accomplish these same safety priorities. So the onus is on the military to make sure that we are staying out of that airspace, which is civilian, very heavily used airspace, should be protective. But again, there's a lot of internal flight rules and regulations that can be set at the squadron level. I expect to see that from the military. They know that, and based on the accident that happened, it's a very tricky airspace to navigate. So we need to make sure that and Congress can be watching as well. But the onus really is on the military to make sure that they steer way clear of that civilian airspace.
Right. And final question, I know that the NDAA passed with bipartisan support, which I think is something the American people are probably happy to hear right now to see Congress working together. What do you think it was about this bill and this process that made it possible to get it through at a bipartisan level?
I think both sides of the aisle in Congress prioritize national security. There should be no question. And I sit on Armed Services Committee, which is a very bipartisan committee. We frequently share the same viewpoint, and there are many veterans on that committee, and I think we all speak the same language, which goes a long way. But I think it just speaks to the fact that the world is not a safe place right now. We all recognize that there are challenges. We are asking our military men and women and their families to do so much right now. So both sides of the aisle would agree on that issue, and I'm thankful that there's agreement and that there was great bipartisan support for this year's NDAA.
All right, Congresswoman Kiggins, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, good to see you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right, back here in the Live Impact News studio after that interview with Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, joining 13 News Now for a little bit of time earlier today, which we greatly appreciate as always. Now, we also had some big local news here that is coming by way of state government. Governor Glenn Youngkin announcing a $689 million investment in Chesapeake. We have sound from his press conference on this investment earlier today. Let's listen in on that press conference on a major investment, again, in Chesapeake, right here in Hampton Roads.
We've attracted more than $150 billion in net new capital investment. That's more than the last 5 administrations combined. The governor has put Virginia back on the map. And now that we're on the map, companies like LS Cable can call Virginia home. So it is an honor to present to you the 74th governor of Virginia, the man that has unleashed the true potential of Virginia, Governor Glenn Youngkin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As I repeat frequently, my wife doesn't stand up for me, so thank you. Juan Pablo, I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for the energy that you bring every single day. And I have to say, during the course of the last year, as you moved from chief deputy to secretary, you have brought an extraordinary amount of success with you. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And as Juan Pablo shared a little more than 7 months ago, we were celebrating the 1-year anniversary of a huge announcement that, of course, Bon, thank you for choosing us then, and thank you for choosing us again today. Juan Pablo and all of us stood together celebrating a huge commitment to the Commonwealth of Virginia, one that, as you've heard, was the largest economic development commitment in Chesapeake and in Hampton Roads, particularly for a manufacturing site. And we thought, could it get any better? Well, as we do sit here in the run-up to Christmas, thank you for an early Christmas present, LS Cable and System, because today is a day where we are celebrating an amazing announcement. A nearly $700 million project that will create another 430 jobs. And I'm going to stop right there and say, wow, thank you. And all of you know this, that when a company makes a commitment to build a complex of this size, it's a statement that is far more complex than a simple announcement to build something. It's a statement that reflects trust in a partner. It's a statement that reflects optimism and confidence about what will happen tomorrow. It's a statement that reflects a real sense of partnership with everyone involved. And that's what today is all about. Today is about confidence in America. Today is about confidence in Virginia. Today is about confidence in partnerships. And today is about relationships. I had the great privilege on my very first trade mission to be in South Korea and to have an amazing meeting that extended for a long time with the leadership from LS Cable and System. And we talked about what America meant, the values that underpin this great country, and the same values that underpin South Korea. The economic miracle of South Korea, where jobs and manufacturing and investments lifted people out of poverty at an unprecedented level. And the fact that our two nations are allies. Our two nations depend on one another. Our two nations' future is integrated. And before we know it, we started talking about a big project. And that big project came to fruition, of course, last summer. And to see earth-moving equipment and shovels in the ground and an enormous facility rising up in Chesapeake is incredibly exciting. And then we stand here again today to hear of yet an even larger commitment to America and to the Commonwealth. And so I first want to just start by thanking my friends at LS Cable and System. Thank you for relationship. Thank you for friendship. Thank you for believing that these foundational principles are so important that we have to grow and build together. And so, to Bon Ku, the president and CEO of LS Cable and System, thank you, sir. To Mr. Kim, who is the regional president of North America, thank you, sir. And to Patrick Shim, who's the managing director of LS Cable and System, thank you, sir. You show up, you show up, you show up. Patrick, where do you make your home? I'd like to thank the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Paul DeMar, for being here. Paul, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. I'll have more to say about him in a minute. Mayor West, you lead, and I appreciate that. You lead with a servant's heart, and the citizens of the city of Chesapeake benefit from that every single day. Thank you, sir, for your partnership. And Stephen, to say thank you to you, I know emanates to everyone in the room and around the city of Chesapeake who works so hard to bring opportunity to Chesapeake. Thank you for your leadership. Now, Virginia is no stranger to great partnerships. We are home to nearly 80 prominent Korean companies. Korean companies who, for a long time, have called Virginia home. We are blessed with one of the largest Korean American populations in the country. These are entrepreneurs, these are business leaders, these are valued members in our community, members of our military. This is a hugely important part of Virginia. So important that I proclaimed January 13th Korean American Day in the Commonwealth. And while there are all kinds of partnerships that are stemming from these deep relationships, this one with LS is special. It's special because it is an ongoing commitment to the future. An investment of this size, a commitment like this, the invitation by LS to bring 430 Virginians into the LS family is an amazing statement. And when you combine their commitment to the Commonwealth over these two big announcements, it's nearly $1.4 billion, and it's 760 jobs. Thank you for believing in Virginia. This new complex will house extraordinary capabilities that are critical, not just to being in advanced manufacturing, but critical to the national security of the United States of America. The idea that we are going to have copper rod production, recycling, and smelting. The idea that we are now going to bring rare earth magnet production right here to Virginia. And the two of these factors are so critical in our national defense capabilities for advanced weapon systems, but also for electric motors. This is so much more than a manufacturing moment. This is a national security moment. This is a moment with partnership with trusted allies. It's everything we've been talking about. This secure supply chain that is coming to the United States is everything that we know must happen for America and our trusted allies to continue to a tomorrow that is so much better than yesterday. That's why I'm so excited about this announcement. We look forward to building these jobs, these 430 jobs together. Virginia's been blessed with the most amazing workforce in the nation, fueled by our military, with nearly 25,000 brave men and women who wear the cloth every day, transitioning into the next chapter of their lives, whether it's to stay with the National Guard here in Virginia, to be a reservist, to just be a veteran here living in Virginia, that make our state and our nation stronger and better every day. That's a workforce in Hampton Roads and Chesapeake that I know LS will benefit from. We also know that we will see the investment in the construction activity that is just amazing. You see, the $150 billion of capital commitments that Juan Pablo referenced that are coming to Virginia, that are in all phases, from buildings already rising up out of the ground to new ones that are on the planning board, it will underpin another 85,000 jobs and 40,000 construction jobs. Boy, we've got jobs in Virginia. And at the heart of opportunity are those magic words of you are hired. All of you have heard me say this before, but there are powerful words in the English language, and I think the three most powerful ones are I love you. But right behind them are you are hired. You are hired conveys a trust, an invitation, and a belief that together we can build an extraordinary organization that will do amazing things. That's what this is all about. And so I am so glad that LS Cable and System believes in these values, because I've seen it up close and personal. I've watched them, and I applaud their decision again to come to Virginia. Together, our opportunities are limitless, but we have to make them, not just wait for them to happen. And that's what this team has done. This team has worked together in such a productive and collaborative way, and it has been this collaboration that has extended, yes, from LS Cable and System to the city of Chesapeake, to the Commonwealth of Virginia, all the way through to the federal government. The partnership that we have had over this course of this last nearly a year with the Trump administration has been so important to reshoring critical manufacturing in the United States. And we have seen it in Virginia at such an exciting pace. From the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, which has decided that Virginia is the place to be, with now $12.5 billion of commitments to build active pharmaceutical agreements here, to power systems, which are coming into Virginia in every corner of the state to make sure that Virginia and the United States has the critical power supply that we need. And today, yes, advanced manufacturing for rare earth magnets and copper. My friends, this is so important. And therefore, I am so pleased that we are blessed today to have our Deputy Secretary of Commerce with us. Paul DeBar has had an extraordinary career,
All right, we're back here in the Live Impact News studio. Excuse me. And we want to, first of all, we want to acknowledge the fact that we do know that there was a little bit of a buzzing in the audio of that press conference. We apologize. We know that's there. We don't want to subject you guys to kind of that annoying sound there that was in the background of that video. It's a technical issue, but we felt like that press conference was important enough and so relevant to Hampton Roads that we wanted to play it out for as long as we could. And so we apologize for the extenuating sound that accompanied that. The ultimate goal of that press conference, the ultimate core of that press conference, is Glenn Youngkin announcing that LS Cable and System Limited will invest $689 million to expand manufacturing operations in Chesapeake, a move that officials say will create more than 430 jobs and mark the single largest capital investment in Hampton Roads. So that was at the core of that announcement. Okay, we are going to go elsewhere. We still don't have any live events going on, and this is typically something we'll experience on the occasional Friday. People are winding down, getting ready for the weekend. Sometimes on the occasional Friday you can be low on live events, but that doesn't mean that we're low on news, and that doesn't mean that we're low on things that are important to engage with. And so what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to go to Minnesota Governor Walz, who was talking earlier this year, or not earlier this year, earlier today. And Naya's laughing because she knows we have almost made it to the end of our Friday stream. I think we've been staving off the delirium for most of this second hour here. We had a really exciting first hour, but we still got so much to get to. We want to stay locked in, but you're going to have to forgive me for the occasional just sort of rambling that I may do here. Let me lock back in. Let's get focused. This is Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, former vice presidential candidate in this last presidential election cycle. And we know he's going to be talking about fraud in Minnesota and future fraud protections. We know that there's been a series of major fraud cases being prosecuted by federal authorities in Minnesota. We don't know the extent of the losses just yet, but we do know there are some fraud cases in Minnesota. Minnesota obviously has been in the news quite a bit in recent weeks as President Donald Trump has been making verbal attacks on the Somali community, specifically the Somali community in Minnesota. ICE officials, immigration enforcement have been focused on the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. And of course, these lingering fraud cases also involved in the headlines we've been discussing surrounding the state. For now, Governor Tim Walz speaking about future fraud protections to guard against situations like this happening again.
And on this saves you in the long run. And I think trying to cut agency budgets or trying to do it on the cheap ends up in the long run costing you more. So we can get you data. We'll get the data on Tim and from the agency, from MMB. Yeah.
Do you have any sense of why there wasn't stronger oversight earlier? Was this a staffing issue, a funding issue?
I think it's how the programs are structured. Again, the programs say this is what you'll do. Here's how you get the money out. Looking at them, these people are filling it out. Now, the Feeding Our Future is kind of a unique case because of the chaos around COVID and the amount of money that was there. But we look through these, and again, I would remind all of you, we clearly had one in there in 2021, and I said, don't pay them. And they said, you can't do that. You don't have that authority. I said, do not pay them. Let them sue me. They did. And they won. And we paid them. And then they got caught and went to jail after the fact. So a lot of it is that the programs that are set up, and the Medicaid experts who are here, very challenging because, again, and I would assume we're going to see this, there will probably be holds put on legitimate folks for reasons that look like that, and they may bring us to court. Now I have the legal authority at least to stop payment. So I think a lot of it is that they're following the rules. They're trying to get there. It's this change again. We're going to have to be more skeptical about it. You see it, and Drew, I don't want to speak to what the number was. The bulk of all of this in terms of the money is coming out basically out of the Medicaid program. Is that correct?
You know, what I can say, I can't get into the details, but it's a little bit to your question about the tips because there's active investigations. We don't want to jeopardize anything. I did a review of the referrals and tips that came in. What I would tell you that is not news to anybody here, and it was alluded to by the commissioner, that you will see additional prosecutions related to some of these Medicaid programs as they are doing their diligent work going through all this, that the bulk of what I would consider the most egregious and legitimate tips and referrals coming through that portal were absolutely related to this Medicaid program, which is not news to this team. That's something they knew and they've been identifying. And all the others are there things we knew were related to other cases we're working or are under active investigation or anybody can report. So sometimes there's information that we just can't, go on this. And, when we work through this work day in, day out, in terms of, controls in place, that's why we're engaging with experts. As you learn these things in programs that existed for dozens of years, and then you see, this is true in the private sector and the fraud work that we do, when criminals find a thread that they can exploit, they're going to exploit it. And we can always look back and say that those controls should have been more strengthened more on the front end of a program, but once they're there, what's incumbent upon this team and from my perspective and the council is that we need to not only strengthen those controls and put those in place for existing programs, but also start looking prospectively with this work. That's why we're developing these toolkits so that fraud, skepticism is always where our folks are starting to make sure you're looking for those elements to begin with as we're implementing programs and as we're processing applications. One of the things we've talked about that's related to this when we look at it from really three phases broadly, and this is slightly different across all different agencies. You look at it from an application perspective in fraud controls, a determination and a disbursement, meaning when people are coming in and making an application in the system, how do we ensure that these are proper identities, individuals that are applying, determination that we're doing the right due diligence when an agency is approving an individual or an entity for engaging in the program, and then strong disbursement of controls so that we ensure that the money is going where it should be, that we're tracking it from there. That's the hard work that's being done, trying to create consistency across all agencies, knowing all these programs are very different, but what is the layer that we can put in place working together with this toolkit so that we create consistency in all programs, getting to your point, to ensure those controls are in place on the front end.
Does Minnesota need to increase penalties? Currently,
Sure.
you steal millions of dollars in Medicaid, and it's the same sentence as walking into Target and stealing TV.
Yeah. Well, yes, and I don't want to jeopardize anything on this and say, I come back to this. The sense of just being furious around this, one, it It undermines faith in government at a time, to be quite honest with you, that I think is one of the scariest in our nation's history around government and the faith in it. Yes, and we did do a little bit. I think they get viewed as victimless crimes or something. They are not victimless crimes, because that's going to mean there's less money in substance use disorder, that Jeremy Drucker and his team saved lives, made a difference in some really innovative programs, and they don't have as much money. So I do think that. I'll go back to the legislature again. I think that would be something that Republicans would definitely agree with us on. But I do tell all of you, you heard a little bit of this as Drew said, that building these cases. Many of these go back decades. Keep in mind, there's people who have been getting away with this for a long time. There was nothing there, especially in Medicaid fraud. I really worry on the AI piece of it, because it's going to make it. I asked last legislative session for the tools for our team to have the AI, because just something as simple, they're processing 1.5 million.
We have 1.2 million people on the program, millions and millions of claims.
And how many people working on that?
Total at DHS is 2,000.
Yeah, but how many are working on that piece, on verification around Medicaid?
Several hundred.
Okay, so the point being on this is people are saying, well, couldn't you look and couldn't you see this? In some cases, it dropped me. I'm like, why didn't somebody just drive out there and look at it? That's a question I asked them. Drive out there. And I said, why don't you drive out and verify every one of these? That's when they said 1.3 million of them with 40 people. That will take us 75 years if we do 10 a day or whatever it be. So tools to use this, AI tools that look and say, this is just something's wrong here, because these people are getting super sophisticated. They send in an application with proper, they're stealing social security numbers or whatever it might be. They're filling them out. They meet the federal requirements. In many of these cases, they met the federal requirements, and the state is the pass-through. And how do you get those tools, and how do you make the case? So I'm going to go back to your question on this. This takes a ton of work. It undermines state government. It is not a victimless crime, and these people should be prosecuted to the extent that it is. The thing that gets people, and here's how I view it, AJ. Yeah, I understand. We have crimes that are misdemeanors to felonies and all that. In this space, it seems like the thing that captures people's attention is when it's a big, big number or whatever. A whole bunch of small numbers has the same effect. It undermines us. And so, yes, I would like to see us be, I'm just going to say it. I watch very carefully. And I don't like to think I'm vindictive or anything, but when I see these lengthy sentences being given to these people, I feel good about that. They need to be there. Yeah, back.
The 14 high-risk programs that you're auditing, did fraud happen in every one of those programs?
So the 14 high-risk programs were designated high-risk for a number of reasons. So
were they designated because fraud could happen, or you've identified fraud
both.
that happened?
Both. They were.
In all 14?
Well, some of them are new and just getting up and running, so not much opportunity yet, but we're concerned about it because of the controls. And so I think it's very important that we work with the legislature on the front end to design these programs and to have the internal controls throughout. We're owning at DHS more controls than we already have. And then one of the reasons that these got designated high risk is because we started using data analytics within DHS, looking at trends and outliers, and we saw concerning patterns in that data. Now, we haven't finished investigating all of those claims that we flagged, but they are with the Inspector General's office, and they are looking at them.
Do you have an estimate of how much money could have been stolen from those programs?
So,
is it, tens of millions, hundreds of millions?
It is really hard to estimate the amount of fraud. What I know from our Inspector General is the facts and evidence show us, we have the amount of fraud that's been prosecuted. I will tell you that we have over 1,300 open cases right now with our Inspector General. And over the past 5 years, we've identified $50 million for recovery for the Medicaid program.
Governor, I also wanted to ask you about, certainly you talked about the worry about holding the community collectively
Yeah.
the actions that the team does. I want to ask you though, because one thing that I've spoken with some members of the community is they say, it might be time for a reckoning. Do you want to hear more from members and leaders from the Somali community to say, we need to look at ourselves, we need to hold our own neighbors accountable, because look at the damage that this has done to our community. What do you want to hear more from, instead of just saying, don't blame us? Do you want to see more ownership and oversight from within the Somali?
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed. I think for the community to maybe educate their population, because I think what you're seeing here is there's secondary victims in this, that there's providers inside the community that are then victimizing the community themselves by signing them up, because when we're going to some of these people, they're like, I had no idea I was in this program. So I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general. And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population. And again, this is 80 people or so that have been convicted in this, maybe some more in that, out of a broader ring. Medicaid fraud will stretch across all racial demographics, all ethnic groups. So I think it's really important for us to note each community's got this in their own midst, but to blame them and say that they should have been responsible for stopping it, I think that's a pretty hard reach. I think we continue to educate folks about why they shouldn't commit crimes. You would hope that it's being taught both at home and at schools and in our society. But no, I think this idea that the Somali community's to blame for this because they didn't do more, I think that's how we got into this. And that's, again, I know we're not going to lose the whole plot here. All this work that's being done, Donald Trump brought this to the attention like this is something brand new. This is not brand new, and it's been being worked on, but he made it white hot and very dangerous. Yeah.
Governor Ryan with Channel 5, was there a specific moment, a specific date when you realized we have a fraud problem in Minnesota?
Well, I think it's always there. I don't think a specific date, but I think I was always concerned with COVID because if you're in on these decisions that we're making, the amount of funds that we're moving across the country and the fraud allegations that were coming up across the country, I think the one that really, when I started to see some of this was very early on, I knew there was going to be a problem. I personally apparently applied for unemployment benefits in 3 different states under my Social Security number, my name. I got the notices from Illinois, I think Missouri, and one other, and I said, my God, how much would this be happening? And that's when I went, the first one, and this was early in COVID, went to DEED and asked about it. My first concern was in the unemployment insurance, and that is pretty solid, pretty clear, but we were talking about it then, that we have to be very, very careful. But again, I think in retrospect on this, my fear, and I think the world's fear, was food shortages, lack of access to health care, lack of access to basic services during COVID, and it outweighed that.
But what does COVID have to do with autism providers?
It has everything to do with it, that the money was moving quickly at that time, and a lot of these programs brought down the guardrails on all those programs to make sure they got out because they weren't able to deliver services the same way, in-home services and things like that. And that's when you first start seeing it. And it's pretty complex how the payment goes. And a lot of these folks are fairly sophisticated. I think this oversimplification, like, you should have caught them and know they weren't doing it. Once we have the tools now to see the outliers, to see the things that are falling outside of that, we got a better picture. In retrospect, do I wish we had all these tools when COVID started? Yes, I certainly do.
How did we go from earlier this year, the former commissioner of DHS, sitting here at the Capitol and telling Minnesota there's more rumors of fraud than there is actual fraud, to what we're hearing today?
I certainly never said that. I never at once said that. I said I do not know. My gut feeling is, just like anywhere, this is a problem across the country. We were seeing folks, maybe not just outright fraud, running into buildings, crashing, the display cases and running out with stuff. That crime had increased, all of those things. So I was focusing on across this, crimes on carjackings, which some of you remember a few years ago was top priority. We went from 87 to 12. Massive decreases on that. So focusing across crime in this, I fully suspect, and I fully suspect right now, they will continue to work around this. These are people that you would have thought, once they saw all these people going to prison, they would have cut their losses and taken off. Not the case. Not the case. They'll continue to do it. So that commissioner is not here. That commissioner is no longer working for the state of Minnesota, and I never said such a thing. So I think you understand the accountability pieces that go with this, because I am under no illusion that these things weren't happening. I'm under no illusion it's not happening everywhere. My God, we saw it at the Chamber of Commerce. We see it that the folks are out there. And I think now, getting at the heart of it, and what my charge to them and this team here and across state government is, we now know where the situation is. We have a better picture into it. We are going to continue to be a generous state that helps folks, but we're going to do so with a skepticism that they haven't seen. And when I say haven't seen ever through any administration that you're going to see now.
Governor, could you please talk a little bit, Matt Blake with
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about this new program integrity? This is under the Bureau of
Yeah, maybe I'll let Tim talk a little bit about.
The outcomes that you're looking for this. Is Tim O'Malley going to produce a report in 90 days?
Yeah.
What can we see
Yep.
from this?
Good question.
Yeah, I'll be very direct with you. I have a job now that I need to finish at the court. So I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of people over the last few weeks. I have a lot to learn. But I do know I've worked with Waypoint in the past over here. Certainly I'm very familiar with the BCA from my time there, and Drew and I have stayed in touch. I've been working with the governor's office for the past year on a number of other issues. I believe we're well positioned to address this. I can't give you the specifics right now, honestly.
Will you hire staff?
Pardon me?
Will you have staff that will be working with you?
Oh, it wouldn't be big. No, I think there's resources here, especially between, and I had a chance to talk to Josiah. I'm familiar with the people they have there. Many of them have great experience in working, usually in the federal system, on these types of things, and they're in-house there now. But that's something that we're going to talk about. Is there more that has to be done there? I could envision there's 2 or 3 people that I might ask to come along to help with this. A couple of them I think might even volunteer. They're retired now and they're interested in still service. But there's not going to be a big cost to this. I don't see that, if that's what you're asking.
Can you clarify the difference between Optum and Waypoint? You now have 2 third-party companies. Are there more coming in the pipeline here?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
He can talk about Waypoint, but Optum is what contract that DHS put in place as part of the executive order. So we were doing data analytics. We were looking at trends and outliers. The governor wanted DHS to do more, go faster, to hold people accountable. And so we did an emergency contract with Optum. They were the only entity that was able to start right away, that did not have an 8 to 10 month ramp up time. And so that contract is to look at the claims in the 14 high risk services at DHS and to perform an analysis on them before we pay those claims, so that we can potentially catch more fraud on the front end. We'll also find mistakes, but we're looking to catch fraud on the front end before we pay a claim.
Drew can add to that. And I can add to the second piece, and it goes a little bit back to your question too. So when you ask, about staff and all that, when that office, Tim and his expertise and work, one of the things when it comes to the council that we're doing is bringing these agencies together. What the goal here in the oversight, and we are working regularly, developing recommendations and looking for a consistent framework that will be applied across all state agencies. The expectation in that particular realm is not a director of oversight to do that. It's to ensure that those state agencies embed that in the culture and the fabric of every organization across the state. The state of Minnesota would be a large corporation if we were comparing it to one of our Fortune 500 companies in Minnesota. And so fraud prevention.
All right, multiple elected officials there, multiple officials talking about fraud prevention in Minnesota. A story that is wrapped up in many, many layers of Minnesota's story that has been happening throughout the course of the last month and throughout the course of the last few years, something that we will continue to monitor, keep you updated on. Okay, we want to end this Friday by taking a trip around Hampton Roads. We're going to look at a couple of different tower cams that we've got here. We were doing this, think back, not too long ago, we were doing this on Monday, and many of these tower cams were covered in snow and clouds and cold rain. And now we go back to these tower cams and look at the beauticious Virginia Beach oceanfront. A calm seas, a nearly clear sky, a thin layer of clouds, only for some UV protection, and then just a beautiful light crashing of waves onto the shoreline. Of course, Nia Campbell did our wave check earlier today, the hottest segment in local news, and the Virginia Beach oceanfront is looking wonderful. Okay, let's keep it moving here, Nia. What else do we have? Let's make our way around Hampton Roads as we continue to explore these tower cams. Oh, again, the Chamberlain cam. Just aesthetic. I mean, look at the water is barely moving there. You can see the kind of various layers of depth in the water. It's so calm. And then off in the distance, another thin layer of clouds and just a really beautiful day out there in Hampton Roads. Cold. It is cold, albeit not close to what we've experienced on some of our worst December days so far. I went for a little bit of a stroll outside today. The first half of that stroll was very pleasant. I did start to get cold by the second half, but warm enough nonetheless. Okay, out to Hampton, Virginia, where it is more of the same. Look at the Christmas tree in the foreground there, and then just a beautiful sight to behold in the background. You see more calm seas, more sunshine, and beautiful blue skies out there in Hampton. Again, this is just a wonderful Friday that is going to lead into an even nicer Saturday. Now, this was the image of the day on Monday. This is City Center in Newport News, Oyster Point to be more specific. And on Monday, this was the image we continuously went back to show you the extent of the snowfall in some of the more hard-hit areas, because all the grass you see, the road that you see there, all of that was covered in snow by the mid-afternoon. And look at it now, beautiful, back to that plush green grass. And we finish off with a look over Nauticus, from snow flurries on Monday to sunny skies on Friday. What a week it has been here on Live Impact News. We certainly couldn't have done any of it without the People's producer, Nia Campbell. Nia, any last words before we finish out the week?
I'm not ready for Sunday.
Okay, well, hold on now. What is our slogan on Live Impact News?
Live in the moment.
Live
yes,
in the
I am
moment.
living in the moment because I'm going to have a great Saturday, but Sunday, I'm just not looking forward to.
Listen, we feel you. But if you bundle up, again, if you're with a friend and you both have to battle through the elements, it kind of becomes a thing. Okay, that'll do it. We're almost out of time for Live Impact News. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see everyone on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.